Hey, what's up YouTube? Thanks for tuning in this week to Reptiles, Rattlesnakes, and Natural Resources. Today we're going to be looking at how to properly set up Western hognose eggs. So you see in front of us right here a 12-ounce container filled with perlite. Perlite's a potting substrate that works quite well to incubate as a medium. I've got a little bit of water in this one. What I'm going to do here is crush it up, and you'll see the wad there, and that's enough water that as I mix it around provides a drier mix. Too much moisture can actually provide not the best substrate to incubate in. So drier is better, but it has to have an element of humidity to it to provide for the eggs that are being incubated therein. So you'll see here we'll mix pretty well and fill to about 50%. That provides enough space for the eggs to be set in there well with ambient humidity, and then provide enough air space to breathe, as all eggs actually breathe. So these 8 eggs you see here are actually from a double het lavender sable to double het lavender sable breeding. So anxious to see what comes out of this breeding. This particular female actually ovulated unbeknownst to me. Wasn't expecting her clutch. First clutch was 6 eggs, 2 of which went bad, 4 of which were good. She's a first timer female. Then she double clutched with that group there. So what we're doing here is we're going to candle and look for fertility in the eggs, because snakes can ovulate and not have fertile eggs. Now you can see fertility on that one at the bottom with the pink coloration, and that's where the embryo is embedded along the wall of the egg. This next egg here, you can see an overall pink or orange coloration. What you're seeing there is just the blood on the inside of that circulatory system as it begins to expand. That one there you can't see much on. These other ones you can see a little bit of a pink tint to, and that's the embryo which we will face up as we set in the substrate. Now what you're seeing here is at the ends where the eggs kind of like when you close off a sausage. If you've ever seen a sausage being made, they will be moist on the ends, and what you want to do with that is make sure that does not get to touch the moist substrate. It can be detrimental. Now this frame here, we're looking at a deli cup, 12-ounce deli cup. I use those and order those to house baby hognose in, and then also to use as feeding tubs for some that are problem feeders. Now because they are ventilated with holes, you want to tape those holes up for incubation purposes, because there are small species of flies that can get in there and actually cause your eggs to rupture or lay eggs and have little maggots eating through them. When you have expensive snakes or inexpensive snakes, those pests are always unwanted. Now some will argue with the ventilation of the cup, but I find that if you open and close and allow for airflow, because the eggs do breathe, you do quite well with it without complication. Now here's a candling of a really good egg. You can see with a very well developed embryo inside, and that red spot we will always face true north or true up, and the reason we want to do that is just to ensure that the embryo doesn't collapse. That's something that I learned over 20 years ago. Whether it's scientifically accurate or not, regardless, that's just something that I always do. You can see a lot of that blood in there that's beginning to develop as that organism begins to develop. Sometimes you can actually see the heartbeat of the snake at this stage, at just less than a week from being deposited in the nesting substrate. Not able to see a heartbeat in there, but it won't be long before that's something that's visible, and it's really, really cool to have the opportunity to see. So that's a circulatory system that you're seeing in there. The heart, the lungs, those kind of are first to be able to get those gases that are embedded inside the that chamber inside the egg. So what you're going to do here with the eggs, once you determine up, you will nestle them down in the substrate. And what this does, it just provides an opportunity for the egg to keep from rolling around in case the container's bumped. That's the main thing you want to do. And also you can see on the ends where they call these nipple eggs or wet eggs or wet end. There's all kinds of names that are used for them, and I just like to keep those free from the moist substrate. They tend to do better and dry better. But you definitely want to avoid at all costs that place from being touched by wet substrate. It contributes to mold, contributes to other problems, and that doesn't mean a snake can't hatch from that egg, but it does mean that it's something you kind of have to watch for, and I just would rather avoid that problem than anything else. You can still see a window on that end there. Sometimes the leaky part of the egg, the albumin on the inside, leaks through that thin membrane. It's just those pores on the eggshell haven't sealed yet. Remember, the hognose eggshell is more leathery rather than a hard shell. Like a chicken or certain types of turtles have a harder shell, but these guys are very soft shell, so it's porous. And the main exchange in a porous egg is for a gas exchange, but sometimes there's a fluid exchange you just kind of have to watch for on those ends. Again, it's just like sealing off a sausage link, if you've ever seen that process being done, and sometimes it doesn't work as well. It is interesting, however, that sometimes eggs you can see connected by a thin little strand, just like you would link sausage. So that's unusual. I usually just cut that at a dry spot. It doesn't affect the animal, the baby, but that's how each egg is differentiated. Now these eggs are about twice the size of the first clutch. You'll see in a second here some ready to hatch eggs from the first clutch, and these are quite a bit larger. Still really cool. The female did not have to do a reintroduction with a male, and still through 100% fertility. And mind you, she did not brumate for the last 2 years, and it's been 7 months since she locked up. Again, heat is the indicator here. Heat is what determines ovulation. That's why brumation is beneficial, because sometimes you can get that little temperature change will trigger the females to go ahead and throw new eggs. Now you also want to, at this point, go ahead and seal the container. You've sealed in fresh air, so I would suggest every 2 to 3 days opening that up. Let that be a gas exchange. You can smell the smell of the eggs as they release a gas. It kind of has a cucumber type smell, real soft and mellow, but you can still determine it. Now what you want to do is write down your date on the top of the lid that the eggs were laid. And I find that generally at a temperature between 82 and 84 degrees that it's 49 to 51 days that your eggs hatch. So we are sitting on January 30th today. That's the day that this recording was made. We had some eggs from the first clutch. 51 days would be February 6th, so we're about a week out. That's these 2 eggs you see here. They are from that clutch, 1216, and they're nice and plump. But when they were laid, they were only about 50% of the size of those other eggs that you saw. So interesting here, the egg on the right has a dimple on the top. And don't ever worry about the dimples, that's not going to be a problem. But when you see that dimple, usually it happens about a week before the egg hatches. And I do attribute it to the nutrient contents of the eggs being absorbed by the snake. But a curiosity is when you blow on that little dimple, sometimes the humidity in your breath and just your blowing on it will cause it to pop back out, but it'll quickly go back down. So you guys got to see some cool ways to set up hognose eggs. Lots of different ways work. I've seen all kinds of craziness, seen people float cans in an aquarium with water with an aquarium heater in there, and inside of a tuna fish can they just piled up little hognose eggs, and guess what, even in a rusted can all those little babies hatch. So the sky's the limit to what you can really do with this. Lots of different methods work. Thanks for tuning in this week. Hope you enjoyed and learned something about setting up hognose eggs. Remember to like and subscribe.